Hello everybody. So today I'm going to show you 3 recipe videos utilizing ground beef and potatoes. The first, I'm going to show you how to make papas rellenas. All 3 of these are going to be good. Here we go. Okay, so to start, I'm going to boil, this is around 1.5 pounds of russet potatoes that I peeled and I cut into chunks. I'm going to go ahead and put this into my water. This is just room temperature cold water. I'm going to cover with a lid. I'm going to turn on the heat. And I'm going to bring the potatoes up to a boil. Once they start to boil, I'll lower the heat and just let them cook until fork tender. Okay, so to start, I'm going to add my ground beef into the pan. It does have a little bit of fat, so I started with a cold pan, going to break it apart. And whatever juices and fat renders into the pan, that'll just eliminate me having to add cooking oil. So I'm gonna also go in with my onion, my beef bouillon powder. Here I have my ground cumin black peppercorn mix. And just a pinch of salt. Now I'm just going to work that in and break apart the meat and cook it. So like I said earlier, you can definitely create the picadillo, season it how you like, add fresh vegetables. Some people add peas and carrots into the mix. You totally could do that. I'm just going to go with simple today, but you know, get creative. You could even use ground turkey in place of the ground beef. I do that as well. It all works. Okay, so I'm going to add my fresh garlic. I just didn't want to add it initially because I didn't want it to burn in the pan. And now I'm going to continue the saute. And I think this is a good time to, I'm going to also add my V8. And like I said, you could, if you don't have this, you don't have to use this. I typically just use a 1/2 cup of tomato sauce. I just saw this V8 sitting in my pantry. I go, you know what, I need to use that. So I don't know, there's an option for you. So my ground beef definitely has simmered, cooked. A lot of the natural juices rendered from the beef and the V8 juice that I used has cooked out. So at this point, I'm gonna just kind of stir it around. It's where I want it, so I'm gonna let it, you know, cool off. You want this to cool off before you handle it, or you will burn your hands. So that's just gonna stay there and cool. Whew. Okay, so now I'm going to mash my potatoes well. So many ways to mash potatoes with a fork. You could use a ricer. I'm using my masher. Okay, so now I'm going to add some salt. I like garlic powder. Again, these things, just be creative. If you don't like it, don't use it. Onion powder, probably like a 1/4 teaspoon of each. And just a little bit, maybe not quite a 1/4 teaspoon of paprika. Well, maybe a 1/4, yeah. I'm actually using smoked paprika. And I'm also going to add like a 1/4 cup Parmesan cheese. That's salty. It's grated Parmesan cheese, so when you are salting it, you know, just be mindful of that. So you know what? Oh yeah, I can touch this. So I'm gonna get all the potato out of this masher. Fun times with this masher, by the way. And add it. and just combine it and mix it into, geez, this yolk, and just mix it into your potatoes. There we go. Okay, so here I have some all-purpose flour, and I'm going to take some of it and shake it onto this baking sheet. This is where I'm going to place my potatoes once they're assembled. I might need, oops, I might need that flour later, but for now, I'm just going to spread that out so it doesn't stick once I create these, assemble the stuffed potatoes. Okay, so I've dusted my hands with some of the flour. I'm gonna pick up my little, and you can keep kind of dusting because I am going to put, you know, dip this in flour when it's done. So I'm gonna do the first one with like this cheese, and actually I kind of want it to mold a little bit. You're gonna press and use whatever cheese you got, or you don't have to add cheese. I'm just gonna sort of break it apart in here. I'm using like this smoked cracked black pepper cheddar cheese that I had in the fridge. Now I'm going to take my spoon here and just spoon in some of my filling, kind of press it a little bit, maybe like a tablespoon and a half. Now we're going to come back over here and you just enclose it carefully. And you know, you shape it like a potato. I mean, it's not perfect, but oh, is it good. And just lightly pat it. And if you need to like dredge your hands in flour again, that's fine. And there we have it. This is our little papa rellena ready to be fried. So I'm going to take it over here. My little baby, we're going to follow over here. And you want to just dredge it, coat the exterior with the flour. And then create like a little, there we go. We're gonna leave it here and just repeat the process. Here are my potatoes and I'm ready to fry these. Well, my stuffed potatoes that look like potatoes. So I have my fry oil, and what I'm gonna do is just go, oh yeah, it's, see how it bubbles around the handle of the wooden spoon? That's where you want it. You know, 350 degrees Fahrenheit is a good fry temp. Somewhere between 350 and 360. So I'm going to carefully take this. This has actually parsley on it. And just shape it into the potato. And then I'm going to carefully place it into my hot oil. Gently. And before it comes, there we go. There we go. Perfect. And I'm going to let that fry. Same thing with this one. Carefully. There we go. And you see how some of it got on my little spoon? That's why you got to be gentle. So once the potatoes are done, I'm going to place them on this baking sheet with a wire rack to just let them, this will help to keep them crispy. So you'll want to use that, or you could just use the method of putting paper towels on a plate or a baking sheet. That works as well. So another indication that you're looking for is, you know, when you first put the papas rellenas inside the fry oil, they kind of sink to the bottom. But once they start kind of floating to the top, that's what you're looking for. Because remember, this does have egg in it. So once the egg starts cooking, you know, it kind of becomes buoyant. Actually, this one kind of, there we go. Let that cook a little more. I may have overstuffed some of these. There we go. So here I have 3 of my papas rellenas with a little bit of fresh parsley. You could also put sour cream on the side, dipping sauces. It all works, and it's so good. Check that out. Beautiful golden brown color. Let's see. You can hear, but oh, it's hot. It's gonna burn my mouth. Okay, going in. So good. Today I'm making a delicious ground beef and potato casserole baked in the oven. This is gonna be good. So today seemed like a good day for a casserole. I had 1 pound of lean ground beef. I was trying to figure out what to do with it. So I had 2 pounds of potatoes. I have an onion, some fresh cloves of garlic. I'm gonna prep all of my ingredients and we're going to get started by making this casserole. Okay, so to cut the potatoes, I'm just going to cut them into rounds, around 1/4 inch thick, as evenly as possible. Okay, so my potatoes are cut, going into cold water. I'm going to turn on the heat. I'm just going to add a little bit of chicken bouillon powder to give the potatoes some flavor. You don't have to do that. Like I said, salt works just fine. And once that comes up to boil, I'm going to let it go for maybe a minute. So I'm going to shut off the heat. It started boiling, it's been a minute. So I'm gonna remove these potatoes and run them under cold water to stop the cooking process. Because as they cook while they're hot, they will get mushy, they'll continue cooking. Okay, now to work on the ground beef mixture. Here I have a cold pan. I'm going to add my 1 pound. I'm gonna turn on the heat. I'm gonna add some salt, maybe 1/4 teaspoon, cracked black pepper, now I'm just going to break apart and start cooking my ground beef. While the beef is browning, I just want to go over some of the ingredients I'm using. And the ratios are really up to you. But I will be adding some dried parsley, some dried chives. Here I have a little bit of smoked paprika, garlic powder, onion powder. I'm going to add some seasoning salt. I really didn't add a lot of salt to the ground beef just yet, so instead of just adding more salt, I'm going to add some seasoned salt. You could also add some beef bouillon into the mix if you've got that. I like doing that sometimes. Here I have 1 small onion diced, half of a small bell pepper diced. I have around 3 to 4 cloves of garlic that I minced, and I'll be using 2 cups of low sodium beef broth. I'm also going to add salt and pepper to taste towards the end, and I suggest give your dishes a taste when you're cooking for salt or seasoning, because that is personal. It's to your preference. So anyways, back to the beef. Okay, so the ground beef has a head start, and I am going to add some onion, the onion that I chopped, and saute that really well, and the bell pepper. I'm actually going to start adding my dried spices and seasonings. So going in with my garlic powder, like a 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon, it's up to you. My onion powder, my seasoned salt, a little bit of smoked paprika, some dried chives, maybe a tablespoon, dried parsley, teaspoon works. I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic and just continue to saute and brown everything well. So my ground beef is cooked well, everything's sauteed. I'm going to create a space in the center here of the pan. And I'm just going to turn it down just a little bit. I had it on the highest setting. Now I have it on about a medium heat. And I'm going to add 1/4 cup of butter. And I'm going to melt that down. You'll notice this lean ground beef did not yield a lot of fat. So this is why I'm adding the butter. But if you're using a fattier portion of ground beef, then you might want to skip the butter and just use the pan renderings, the fat that rendered from the beef. I'm going in with some all-purpose flour. It's about 5 tablespoons. And I'm just going to combine with the ground beef very well and cook this mixture for about a minute. Now I'm going to add 2 cups of low sodium beef broth. Going in with my next cup, that's 2 cups. I'm going to bring this to a simmer and let it thicken. So this has thickened quite nicely. Now this is optional. I'm going to add kitchen bouquet, not that much. Let me try half of this. Just a little bit. Like I said, it's optional. This is just to give it a little bit of, seasoning and flavor. It gives it a good color, but it's optional. It's not necessary. I'm going to just add whatever was left on the spoon. And this is done. I'm going to taste it for salt, seasoning, pepper, and set aside until I'm ready to use it. Okay, now I'm going to make a bechamel sauce, or a creamy white sauce. So here in my small pot, I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Just going to start melting that down. Now that it's melted, I'm going to add all-purpose flour. Over a low heat, I'm just going to combine and cook the flour for a minute. You just want to make sure you combine well and remove any lumps. I'm going to add room temperature to cool milk. This is 2 cups going in little by little. I really want the sauce to be kind of thick and creamy, so I'm just going to mix little by little, let it simmer, thicken, and add more milk. This is going to take a while. And I'm still working with a low heat setting. Okay, so now I've added all 2 cups of milk. I want this to come to a gentle simmer. I'm going to add just a pinch of salt, like 1/8 of a teaspoon. And I'm just going to continually stir and let this come to a gentle simmer, and it'll thicken. I want it to be thickened a little bit more. The heat is off. My cream sauce has thickened, so I'm going to add just a little bit of freshly grated nutmeg. Give it a stir, and this is done. So let's build this casserole. I've already taken about 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter. So I'm going to layer all of my potatoes at the bottom, just in a single layer as best as I can. They might pile on top of each other. Now I'm going to season with some seasoning salt, just a pinch all around, just to kind of season the layer. I'm going to go in with that smoked paprika, cracked black pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, I'm going to add some shredded cheddar cheese, and for the whole recipe I'm using 8 ounces of shredded cheddar cheese. Just going to add a little, half of it. I'll add half to the bottom layer here. Next I'm going in with my ground beef mixture here, all on the top of the potatoes. You're going to spread that into an even layer. Now I'm going in with my bechamel sauce, all on top of the ground beef. This smells amazing. I'm going to go in with the rest of the cheddar cheese. Now I'm going to put this in a preheated oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, uncovered, for about 35 to 40 minutes, or until everything is bubbling and browned on top. Today I'm going to be making a taco ground beef shredded hash brown casserole. I'll be using 30 ounces of shredded hash browns. You could use it frozen. This is kind of thawed already, around 30 ounces. 1 can of cream of chicken soup, a drained can of Rotel. I'm going to be using some Mexican sour cream. I'll season with some smoked paprika, some chives, and I'll also be using some shredded cheddar cheese. And here I have a pound of lean ground beef that I'll be seasoning with like taco seasonings. You could use a store-bought prepackaged of taco seasoning. I have a pantry full of seasonings that I'm gonna just put together and season the ground beef. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm gonna start breaking this apart. This is seasoned salt. You could just go with salt, like a half teaspoon to a teaspoon. I'm gonna go in with some dried dehydrated onion. Here I have some garlic powder. Like I always say, season how you like. Here I have some chili powder, like a teaspoon or so. I really want this, yeah, to have the chili powder. I'm also going with some ground cumin. I've also got some smoked paprika in here. Just break it apart, cook it. I did add a little bit of cooking oil to my pan here, my cast iron skillet. And I'm also going to go with some cracked black pepper. And that should do the trick. Instead of using the seasoned salt, maybe you can add like beef bouillon powder. Or like I said, just add salt. Okay, so I'm gonna add my can of Rotel into the ground beef. There we go. And I'm just gonna let it continue cooking just for a minute or so. I'm really not trying to overcook the Rotel. At this point, you know, taste things for seasoning and adjust to your preference. And just a tad more chili powder, like 2 teaspoons to, 2.5 teaspoons. I don't know if a tablespoon would be too much of chili powder. It really depends on what you like. So the residual heat will carry over from this cast iron skillet and let it hang out, and just shut off the heat. This is done. Okay, time to make the hash brown part. So I have about 30 ounces of my shredded hash brown, my store-bought. I'm going to add like a cup of my sour cream, my cream of chicken, my condensed chicken soup. I'm gonna add some dried chives, some smoked paprika, and let's give it a mix. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit of my shredded cheese into, just a little bit, the rest will go on top, into my hash brown mix. I'm gonna go with some cracked black pepper. I'm also gonna add a little bit of onion powder. Season this how you like, and some seasoned salt. Now just mix, combine, and then we're gonna put this casserole together in my baking dish. Okay, I'm working with like an 8 by 12. If you do this in a 9 by 13, just the layer's gonna be a little bit flatter, but I'm going for an 8 by 12. So I'm gonna add into my buttered baking dish all of my hash brown mixture. Okay, so going on with my layer of ground beef. And I noticed the Rotel, the can of Rotel that I used really didn't have a lot of green chilies in it. So you could add extra green chili. You could add pickled jalapenos to this. I like doing that sometimes. I just went for Rotel because I found it in my pantry. All on top. And I'm going to bake this uncovered in a preheated oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 45, 50-ish minutes, or until everything is golden brown, bubbly, cooked. Just get that on there. And there we go. By the way, I used around 2 tablespoons of of softened butter to spread on the baking sheet before I added everything. Okay, going into the oven. Okay, see you in about 45 to 50. Okay, it's done. I'll close it behind you. So it got a little toasty and crusty on the top, just like we like it. Let's see. Oh. So yeah, I'm gonna let this set and just take a look at that. So, you know, maybe 35, 45 minutes. I think my oven ran a little bit hot, but this smells so good. So I have some green onion and parsley, or this is actually scallions, the green tops of scallions, and I'm just going to garnish while it's still kind of warm. And get the parsley on here, and like, this is dinner. It's just serve with the side salad, or don't. If you just if you just want the casserole, hey, I won't tell anyone. So I'm gonna let that set for like 10-15 minutes just to let it cool slightly, and then you serve it and top how you like. Okay, so I'm gonna top it with some more scallion, pickled jalapeno, and my crema. So let's get this here and just top it just like that. I'm gonna go with some more scallion tops. I'm gonna get some pickled jalapeno action going here. I love these. Some people don't. You don't have to do this, but right on top, just like that. And there's dinner. This is a delicious taco ground beef casserole. So I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching.